E from MarketWizards.com, Sunday afternoon, about 10 minutes after 4 on the 1st of October, 2023. Just doing a quick review for the market opens. Reminder to use risk capital you can afford to lose. All right, looking at angels and demons from Friday and talking about the short trade. I don't believe there is such a thing as a short trade, but I do believe there are trades that have much higher odds and higher probability than others. So let's take a look at what I call sequence trading. I learned these ideas from the great Kevin Haggerty, one of the best that I ever studied with, and loved his work. So let's take a quick peek and see what we can put together, cobble together out of a few ideas. So timing wise, we had the angel, the demon, which is the high of the session, which high is not exceeded. I used 3-minute bars. Kevin Haggerty used 5 at the time. And that becomes the demon. We already had an angel in place earlier. We've got the VWAP, a VWAP here that was pushing. And this was all done in low overnight volume and obviously news trading. And then we get some profit taking. So this trade comes back, we bounce back. This is what I call retest failure because we can't take out the high and we slump backwards. And this is the morning session. And we get one more high. And now we've made another lower high at the 15,000 area, which is a major pivot. And we slump down right into lunch, we bounce up, and then we get another vicious sell coming down throughout lunch. And there's been from this time to the end of the session, say 2:30-ish, we were just wallowing down here and obviously chopping. And these traders had, in my opinion, profits to protect. Was the end of the month, end of the quarter. Who is not going to try to cover as a day trader, cover and make sure you take something home after this? Are you waiting for, another good luck charm to hit for you to get even more? So this is where the odds, in my opinion, change. And a couple of people that I was trading with, we all felt the same way that, boy, it's time for a bounce. And Paulie came out with the idea that I think we're going back up, testing 900 plus, and he was absolutely right. And we can see this is where the angel sets 236, and we get a gigantic push back up. We'll do that on another chart. And then we get another pushback taking profits, and we get one last leg up. And this is late in the session. So it always looks easy in hindsight, but it isn't, especially at 10 minutes of 4 at the end of the month and quarter and so on. But nevertheless, we can still understand the dynamics of what happened, even if you didn't trade it. So this was your angel, and this is your angel test back here at the end of the day. It stops right here at this the high of this bar, which was 839. And then we take off and settle into the close. So if there was one trade that I would suggest had the highest probability, it was probably this trade right here. And although it's not a sure trade, it's certainly a high probability trade right there to get a push in profit taking. And of course, the key is you've got to take out these highs in here first. That 1862 area had to clear, and then we get the push to, for an algo trade. So let's take a look at a couple more charts to help put it together. All right, so here's a chart that I want to take a look at. We could see this was a speed chart, and we could just see how this was ripping or underneath the rain line and the blue line and the fast lines. and then we settle for a bit. Nobody knows here, and then we take out that low and come down. And this is still in the afternoon. Here's about 1 o'clock. We still get this sideways consolidation. We get one last check down here into that target line that I said was possible to test the 05 to 09. This low was 11 and a quarter, I believe it was 11, and then off to the races and get a pretty good size push. And this comes after 2:30. Very, very important to put the sequence together. So this chart in and of itself is helpful, but when you marry it with other charts, it becomes even more helpful. All right, and this is what I call marrying several charts together to get an edge over other traders who aren't willing to look at different things and just have one chart that has all of the information that they think they need. And we can see on this 2-day chart how once we abandon the top box, then you have the right to challenge the next box. And that breaks, we have the right to challenge the next box. And we can see where this box was challenged. We bounce back, but we cannot get back up into this 7th box. And then we come back down. And this is where at lunchtime, we get that tremendous sell program. And finally, we test, as I had posted, perhaps the 805 to 809 could get tested. And that comes from this, what I call a 60 back in the 2-day trade. And even up here, for those that wanted even more, and it certainly could have gone higher, but I noted that we had a 400-point trade in 2 days, and I thought somebody needed some profits. And that's sequence trading, when traders decide, okay, there's better reward opportunities than the risk trying to buy up here. And if I'm looking at the system pivots, I already know these areas pretty much by heart once you study them. So I know this is an area, this 961 is certainly going to marry up with this idea. So I'm looking at this too, and I'm looking at the 922s, and that was this bounce at the end of the day into that 22. I'm also looking down here at the 60 because that's the middle of a 2-day swing. And if that breaks, then we know we have the right to challenge the 60 back. And we note how that is a double in here from that low at the end of the day on the prior day. So that's in my mind as I'm looking at that as well. The middle of this box down here is 805. So that's why 809 to 805 could be challenged, in my opinion, if we had that one last little break, which we did. And then we bounce, obviously, into the close. I'm guessing that at the end of the day, closing pivot is going to be 882 and a quarter. It doesn't mean it's going to close exactly on it. It's going to mean that that's going to be the directional pivot that I want to use because I think that's an important idea. And that was because that was the middle of this box, the yellow circle, from that 922 to the 843.75 down here, which had been broken. And so I'm assuming that's going to be the support pivot, and that's going to be the resistance pivot for the end of the day. So we're going to use the middle pivot. Simple as that. And this was the target line we talked about. This was the closing support pivot I just mentioned. This was the resistance pivot that I just showed you. And that's why I felt that this was probably the natural idea to think of. If you wanted long side, you had to leg off of that 882. And if you wanted to come short side, you needed to get it back under that to come back to test down here. It's just what I call trade logic. And let's take a look at one more set of dynamics. This was our gap. Obviously, there's an RTH chart. These are sigmas. And we note that we're at the upper end. We come down, and a lot of times you're going to cross over. And once we cross over and then stay under the blue line here, then we've got to play those two lines. And if we get under that, we know we're going to test the orange side or the red side even. And this is where that big sell comes in. And then this is the sideways action. This is that low that we talked about. Notice how that marries up over here with that prior low on the day before. And so this was an area, high odds area, that you should be looking for if you want a trade, not to keep looking short, but to think that better odds are going to go to the long side. And as it turns out, this low is 811. The angel that forms is 839. That's the high of this bar. And then we get 100-point trade from there, and profits get taken, and that's the sequence trade that comes back to take profits on this. And anybody who wants to play late day, obviously you're tremendous risk at the end of the day, where you could have worked all day and give it all back if you're not careful. Then we get that last push up, and this highs are like 929, I think it was the last high. And we had said you got to be paid by 922s. We thought that was the resistance pivot you had to use. And that thing comes all the way back down and tests the angel and then bounces into the close. So what I've just showed anybody that's looking over my shoulder where I do my studies, this is what I call sequence trading. And if you believe in that, then you're always looking for high odds trades. And the question of where can you get 2 points ES, or where can you get 5 points, the equivalent 5 points in the NQ, you look for these type of trades because it's much higher probability. And you don't have to assume that somebody's playing with just one contract. There are traders, big traders, who'd rather take a short trade, one with much higher odds, and load up on contracts as opposed to playing all day long with one contract and hoping they get to run. So for smaller traders, obviously less risk by playing fewer contracts, but you do need the movement. And that's one of the reasons that I love the NQ, because there's good movement. Now, these dynamics play out over and over, day after day, including with the E-mini S&P, which I know a lot of traders love, and I did too for a longest time, and I still feel like that's in my wheelhouse and something that I enjoy time to time, migrating over there. But I'm more focused on the NASDAQ, but it doesn't matter. They both work. And if you look back and look at your 40, 50, 60 backs on Friday, you will see just how technical these markets are. And think like a bot is my best suggestion. Find a high odds trade, and when market is moving, then go with it. And no shame in taking stop outs. That's the biggest insurance policy we have. Taking a stop and say, okay, that didn't work. Let's try another. All right. Hope you enjoyed this review of what I like to call sequence trading, and some pre-market analysis before we start the next week to see where we left off. All right. Hope everybody has a great weekend, and we'll talk soon.